Hi guys, so today we are starting lesson 1 in module 3, which is all about rational numbers, and our very first lesson is about number lines and just getting familiar with using horizontal and vertical number lines. And so I'm just going to go over some vocabulary terms that are very important for you to know, and I'm going to just explain some things about the number lines for you. So in front of me on my screen, I have a number line, and you can see that there are both positive and there's negative numbers on the line. And a number line can include both positive and negative. And really, up until this point, you've probably only worked with positive numbers, but now we're going to start getting into those negative numbers. I do want you to know that the numbers on a number line are called integers. So you're going to hear that word referred to a lot. You're going to see it in the textbook as well, and you're going to hear me use that word. So integers are what we call the numbers on the number line. So as our numbers move to the right of 0, they are positive. So that's really what you guys have worked on so far. When you've seen numbers really up until this point, we've always worked with numbers that are greater than 0. Those are always been positive numbers. However, now we are going to also work with numbers that are negative numbers, and the negative numbers are found to the left of 0 on a number line. And that means that they are less than 0. And eventually we will get to ordering some of these numbers. And so if I was ordering like -5 and comparing it to 4, then -5 would be less than 4 because it is a negative number. Now, you're also going to hear us refer to the word scale, or you're going to see that word in the textbook as we go through the lessons. The scale is referring to the number line and how the numbers are increasing on your number line. So in this case, the number line that you see in front of you on the screen is just increasing by a scale of 1. So it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 9, or going the opposite direction, -1, -2, -3. So it's just increasing by ones or decreasing by ones. But you could have a scale going by 2, so it could go, each tick mark could be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then going the opposite direction, it would be -2, -4, -6, -8. You could have a scale of going by 5s. You could have a scale going by 10s. You could have a scale going by 100. It really just depends on the problem that you're working with and what scale would make the most sense. I do want to also insert here, though, whatever scale that you choose to work with, is that scale needs to be the same on both sides of the number line. So you wouldn't want to have a scale of 1s going on the positive side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the negative side increasing your scale by 5s, -5, -10, -15. That would be incorrect. So whatever scale you use, you want to keep that consistent across your entire number line. All right, let's talk about opposites on a number line. So opposites, the opposite numbers are the same distance from 0, except in the opposite direction. Here it tells us what we do to graph. So it says to graph each point, start at 0 and move to the right or left based on the sign and number. To the right, you're going to move for positive, and the left would be a negative. To graph the opposite, you start at 0, but this time you would move in the opposite direction the same number of times. So for example, let's go with 4. So if I wanted to take one of these and plot it on 4, actually I can't do that when I'm in. Let me go like this. So if I want to plot one of my dots here on 4, again, I would start at 0, and then I would move over 1, 2, 3, 4 places. And I'm just going to drop that right on that tick mark. And then if I wanted to plot the opposite of 4, the opposite of 4 would be -4. So I'm going to grab one of my dots here. Again, I start at 0, but this time I go in the opposite direction. So it'd be -1, -2, -3, -4, and then basically move over 4 times to the left, or the opposite direction. Okay, so again, the opposite is just moving in opposite directions from 0, but it's always going to be that same distance. Let's say that I wanted to plot -9. So if I was plotting -9, again, I'd go to 0, and I'd move 9 times to the left and drop my dot right there. And if I wanted to plot the opposite of -9, that would be 9. Again, I go to 0, and I move 9 times, this time in the opposite direction, which would be to the right, and I can plot 9. So the opposite of negative 9 would be 9, or the opposite of 9 would be negative 9. So again, I'm always starting at 0, but I'm moving in the opposite direction the same number of times. We could do one more. Let's say we wanted to do 2. So again, I start at 0, I move 2 spaces to the left. If I wanted to plot the opposite of that, again, start at 0, and I move 2 spaces to the left. This time that would make me end up at negative 2. So the opposite of 2 would be negative 2, or the opposite of negative 2 would be 2. Okay, moving on, let's look at what vertical number lines. I'm just going to hit that present button again. So vertical number lines, guys, are the same as the horizontal, but it's just moving in it up and down. So they're going to include both positive and negative numbers, but as you move up from 0, your numbers are going to be negative. Your numbers are going to be positive, and as you move down from 0, your numbers will be negative. The best example of a vertical number line is probably using a thermometer. So if you drop below 0, you'd be in the freezing category. And then the numbers moving up from 0 would be positive. So vertical number lines, we're also going to be using, we can do the same thing by plotting those opposites on a vertical number line as well, by just saying, okay, let's go with the number 7. If I wanted to plot 7 and then the opposite of 7, again, I would start at 0. This time I would move up 7 places to 7. To get to the opposite of 7, I would again start at 0, and I'd move down 7 places to go to negative 7. So I still can find those opposites by just using that vertical number line. All right, so I'm going to have you try this on your own, and then we'll come back together to share out what our answers are. So you can either use this number line if you want, or you can, if you'd rather do have paper, you can create it in front of you in your notebook or in your workbook. But there's 6 questions that I'm going to have you work through, and you're going to plot. If you choose to use this one, I have included the dots here for you so that you can drag them and drop them onto the integer on the number line. But you do have to also label it. So you're going to be coming in here and labeling it. If you're going to label, you can always insert a text box. You can resize the text box as well. And then you'll put whatever letter is you're using that's based on the problem here. It says to label it a certain letter. So label it R, Q, T, S, U, and V. So you can include your text box there, and then you can just type in there whatever letter. So if it's the letter V, you can type in the letter V, and you can resize it if you want. You can even put a color to it if you want to have it stand out a little bit. So I'll just drag this over here so you guys can use this as well if you would like to use it. So that will be available to you as well. All right, so what you're going to do, that's not dragging for me right now. All right, so what you're going to do is go through these 6 questions. So number 1, it says to choose an integer between -4 and -9, and you're going to label it R on your number line. So you're going to look to see, okay, where would between -4 and -9, and again, you can grab the dot, label it with a text box, and then you'll keep going. So then what is the opposite of R? You're going to label it Q. Now your answer could be different than somebody else's answer here because there's going to be multiple answers possible. Number 3, it says to state a positive integer that's greater than Q, whatever your Q was, you'll label that T. Number 4, state a negative integer greater than R, label that S. Number 5, state a negative integer less than R and label it U. And the last one, state an integer between R and Q and label it V. So I'm going to have you work through those 6 questions, and then we'll come back together and talk about what our answers were.